Right. Forget everything you thought you knew about how this scandal was going to play out, because we just witnessed a plot twist so dramatic, so absolutely unexpected, that it has left Westminster in complete shock and sent political reporters scrambling to rewrite their entire narratives. Ed Miliband, the Secretary of State for Energy Security and Net Zero, former labor leader, someone who has been in politics for decades navigating every conceivable controversy, has just resigned. Not over some minor policy disagreement, not because of personal reasons, but directly as a result of the Mandelson scandal taking a dramatic and devastating turn that apparently implicated him in ways nobody saw coming. Parliament is in absolute chaos right now, with MPs demanding emergency debates, opposition parties calling for a full government inquiry, and the entire Labour cabinet reportedly in crisis meetings, trying to figure out what on earth just happened and how much more damage is coming. This is not just another minister falling on their sword to protect the Prime Minister. This is a major political figure with his own power base and his own legacy, deciding that staying in government is more toxic than resigning, which tells you everything about how catastrophic the latest developments must be. We are talking about a scandal that was already terminal for Keir Starmer, potentially bringing down multiple cabinet ministers, reshaping the entire government, and creating a political firestorm that could burn for weeks or months. If you want every single detail of this absolutely explosive development as it unfolds, hit that subscribe button and smash notifications right now, because Parliament is literally on fire, politically speaking, and you cannot afford to miss what happens next. So let us start with the most important question. What exactly happened that forced Ed Miliband to resign? Because this is not something you do lightly, walking away from a cabinet position, ending your ministerial career, accepting the political damage that comes with resignation. The reports that are emerging, and we need to be clear that information is still coming out and being verified, suggest that new documents or evidence has surfaced linking Miliband to the Mandelson appointment process in ways that are deeply problematic. We are talking about potential involvement in the decision to bypass normal vetting procedures, possible knowledge of Mandelson's problematic connections before the appointment was made, maybe even active participation in efforts to suppress information that would have prevented or complicated the appointment. The dramatic turn that triggered this resignation appears to be the release or leak of internal communications, possibly emails or meeting minutes, that show Miliband was far more involved in the Mandelson situation than anyone previously knew. These documents apparently contradict previous statements, both from Miliband himself and from other government figures, about who knew what and when. When a cabinet minister gets caught in provable lies about their involvement in a major scandal, resignation becomes not just likely, but essentially inevitable. You can spin a lot of things in politics. You can deflect and minimize and reframe, but you cannot spin documentary evidence of your own words contradicting your public statements. The timing of these revelations is particularly devastating because they come just as the government was trying to manage the existing Mandelson crisis, just as Starmer was attempting to stabilize his position, just as there were hopes that maybe the worst was over. Instead, the scandal has metastasized, expanded to engulf another senior minister, demonstrated that the rot goes deeper than just the Prime Minister and Mandelson, and created a whole new wave of questions about who else might be implicated. It's like trying to put out a fire, only to discover that the flames have spread to the entire building while you were focused on one room. Parliament's reaction has been absolutely extraordinary, with scenes that veteran political observers are describing as some of the most chaotic they have witnessed in years. The moment news of Ed Miliband's resignation broke, the chamber erupted. Opposition MPs were on their feet demanding statements, asking if other ministers will resign, questioning whether the entire government is complicit in cover-ups and corruption. The Speaker was struggling to maintain order as multiple MPs tried to speak simultaneously, as points of order were raised constantly, as the normal procedures of parliamentary business essentially collapsed under the weight of this crisis. This is what it looks like when parliamentary democracy is actually working as a check on executive power, when MPs from all parties recognize that something fundamental has gone wrong and demand accountability. Conservative MPs are having an absolute field day, as you might imagine. They have been attacking Labour over the Mandelson scandal for weeks, but this is vindication beyond their wildest dreams. They are calling for a full public inquiry. They are demanding to know which other cabinet ministers knew about the vetting failures. They are suggesting that the entire government might need to resign if the corruption is as widespread as it now appears. Every Conservative MP is trying to get called to ask devastating questions, to make the most of this moment when Labour is at its most vulnerable. It is political blood sport, and they are absolutely reveling in it. Reform UK is being characteristically blunt, with their MPs calling this proof that the entire Westminster establishment is rotten to the core. They are using Milliband's resignation to attack not just Labour, but the entire political class, arguing that this is what happens when career politicians prioritize protecting each other over serving the public. Nigel Farage has already given multiple interviews where he basically said, "I told you so," and used the resignation to bolster his argument that voters need to look beyond the traditional parties to find anyone trustworthy. Every scandal like this feeds the populist narrative, and Reform is milking it for everything it's worth. The Liberal Democrats are taking a slightly different approach, calling for constitutional reforms to prevent this kind of situation in future. They are arguing that the vetting process for senior appointments needs to be independent of political interference, that transparency requirements need to be strengthened, that accountability mechanisms need teeth. It's a more policy-focused response than the raw political attacks from the Conservatives and Reform, but it's no less damaging to the government because it suggests systemic failures rather than just individual corruption. But perhaps most devastating are the reactions from within the Labour Party itself. This is where you really see the crisis, when government backbenchers are openly critical, when former ministers are calling for accountability, when even loyalists are struggling to defend what has happened. The usual instinct in politics is to close ranks when under attack, to protect your own side, even when they're wrong. But that's not happening here. Too many Labour MPs are either silent or making carefully worded statements that defend democracy and transparency, rather than defending Milliband or Starmer. When your own side cannot or will not defend you, when they are prioritizing principles over party loyalty, you are in serious trouble. Ed Milliband's resignation statement itself is worth examining because it provides clues about exactly what happened and how he's trying to position himself going forward. He apparently takes responsibility for errors in judgment, which is political code for "I did something wrong, but I'm not going to specify exactly what." He expresses continued support for Labour values and the government's broader agenda, which is the classic "I'm resigning from this position, but not from politics." And crucially, he doesn't really defend himself against the allegations, doesn't claim he's innocent or that he's being unfairly scapegoated. That omission is telling because it suggests the evidence against him is strong enough that mounting a vigorous defense would only make things worse. The implications for Keir Starmer are absolutely catastrophic. He has now lost a cabinet minister to the Mandelson scandal, which validates everything his critics have been saying about the severity of the situation. He can't claim this is just opposition exaggeration or media hysteria when his own cabinet members are resigning over it. He can't argue that proper procedures were followed when the evidence has forced a minister to quit. He can't minimize the scandal when it is claiming political casualties at the highest levels of government. Every line of defense he has tried to construct has just collapsed, and he's left more exposed and vulnerable than ever. The question of who else might be implicated is now consuming Westminster. If Milliband knew about the vetting failures and the problematic Mandelson connections, who else knew? How many other cabinet ministers were involved in discussions about the appointment? How many civil servants raised concerns that were overruled? How widespread is the knowledge of wrongdoing, and how many people have been lying or misleading Parliament about it? These questions are not going away, and every day without answers increases the pressure on the government and the likelihood of more resignations or sackings.
The media is in full feeding frenzy mode, with every outlet running extensive coverage of the resignation and its implications. Investigative journalists are digging deeper, trying to find more evidence of who knew what and when. Political editors are analyzing what this means for Starmer's survival prospects. Constitutional experts are discussing whether we're heading towards a full government collapse. The story is absolutely dominating the news cycle, pushing everything else aside, and it shows no signs of subsiding anytime soon. Social media has absolutely exploded with reaction, memes, and commentary. People are sharing the old clips of Ed Miliband as labor leader, the famous bacon sandwich moment, all the previous political embarrassments, and adding this resignation as perhaps the most significant moment of his career. The jokes are brutal, the analysis is damning, and the consensus seems to be that this is evidence of corruption at the very top of government. The hashtags are trending worldwide.